Good day out there to all of my listeners, and I'd like to welcome you to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And I'm your host. My name is Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And for my new listeners out there, the name of my book is titled Is Your Way in Your Way. It's a self-discovery guide for women on how to restore yourself, learn from your experiences, and be your true self again. This podcast is also about individuals who are stuck, that you know that there's something calling your soul, but you just can't seem to get to it. It's kind of like the book I wrote. I've been wanting to write a book forever, but I just could not get to it. I couldn't write the book. I was stuck. Those individuals that want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be an author, you like to forgive somebody, you need to get out of a toxic relationship. It's just a gamut of things that you aren't able to let go. Also, in other words, you have what I call these self-imposed barriers that's preventing you from living your best life on your terms. And boy, do we have a topic today, topics related to giving you an opportunity to do some self-reflection. And the name of the topic is Do Not Give Up. And who better to talk about that topic is my special guest, Gina just one moment, listeners. Economopoulos. I want to keep saying it. Economopoulos. I told her only say her name once. Say it again, Gina.
It's Economopoulos.
Economopoulos. Okay. Yes. Well, welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way, Gina. And I am looking forward, and oh my goodness, my listeners cannot wait to hear about Do Not Give Up. How many times have we wanted to give up on something? Okay, now before we delve into Gina's story, I want to tell you a little bit about her background so that you can get a tidbit of what she's about before we take our deep dive. Gina's journey is one of resilience and purpose. She was born as the seventh of 8 children in a warm Italian Greek family in Syosset, New York. Gina's path was shaped by love, faith, and a series of life-altering surgeries. A social science graduate with a background in both social work and bartending, she found herself on a profound spiritual journey after her mother's passing, spending 12 years in a convent before dedicating herself to caring for adults with disabilities. Now, Gina's also serving as an end-of-life doula, offering compassion and guidance to those in their final moments, grounded in her faith and the strength of her sobriety through Alcoholics Anonymous. Through life's highs and lows, from golf and pool to beach days, Gina walks her path with gratitude, service, and unwavering grace. She is the author of a #1 bestseller, Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk. Wow, I'm just telling Gina before we got on, I love that title, and I will tell you all later as we get into our conversation why I love that title so much. As Gina will tell you why she came up with that title. So Gina, tell us a little bit about your backstory.
Okay, as I'm from Syosset, New York, like you shared. I'm from one of 8 kids. I do have to say I had loving parents, unconditional love. I grew up in a real big family, and I mean, my parents were so loving to me, and the way they raised us, that as a kid, by the time I was 18, I wanted to get married and have 8 kids by the time I turned 22, because I just saw my family. It was just, they were just so good. My dad was a hard worker, provided for us. We also learned how to work for ourselves, so we had that kind of upbringing. Yeah. And, but yet at the same time, out of the 8 children, I happened to be born with a lot of physical problems, physical limitations. I was born 6 weeks after I was born. My mom noticed I had a hip. I was always crying and my hips were out of place. And comes to find out that I had a hip replacement. So I was in a body cast. Of course, I don't remember that, but I do believe it's always in our unconscious mind. I was in a body cast my first year, just about.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
and then at the same time, I was so gifted with my father. My father had these extra bone tumors. It's a disease called osteogenic, whatever. I mean, it's a long word, but I inherited. So growing up, I had a lot of surgeries. When I was maybe first grade, third grade, I've all these nice scars on me, and I say that I was blessed because nobody in my family got it. It was just me.
Yeah, it was just you.
It was just me. So I was physically limited growing up. And
Okay.
my siblings, 6 older siblings and one younger brother, they were all athletic, all popular, pretty, and I didn't feel that way because it was just
Okay.
I was like a black cloud, I felt like, or the black sheep.
Yeah.
And then also my mom, who I mean loved dearly, she had my younger brother when she was 49 years old, 6 years after me. So
Yeah.
one would, the doctors did say could be, but he was perfectly fine, perfectly fine. So I mean, like I said, I was filled with love, the house, but I didn't love myself because I compared myself to people. I always had a smile. I was cute. Everyone called me Gina Lola Brigida. So I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
like this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I try to keep up with everyone, keep up, with whether I couldn't play sports, so I'd be a fan, a cheerleader, or I tried to fit into different groups, looking for that love and acceptance, not from my family, but from the, growing up in the 80s. That's where, I'm like, yeah, let's, I want to be popular. I want to be loved by my friends.
Sure. Absolutely.
And for some reason, I just felt like I was a unique person. I mean, for me, I was a unique individual. I didn't really like myself. I had a low self-esteem. I just was like insecure.
Yeah.
I felt I would feel inadequate. Like if I would wear something, I just felt so inadequate. And then, as time went on throughout my childhood, as well as going into high school and to college,
Yeah.
that's where I went to alcohol. That's where I was drinking because
Oh.
I was drinking to run away. To run away. I didn't want to, not that I was stuck. I was a runawayer. I didn't want to be
Right.
stuck. So,
Okay.
to numb the pain because there was such pain inside me without realizing it. But then
Mm.
I figured every kid goes through this, but I don't
Yeah.
know,
Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't know how it is, but that's what I had done. That was my solution is to, okay, when I drink the alcohol, then I'm
Yeah.
the life of the party. I'm this and this
Exactly.
and
You're
this and this.
popular and yeah.
Popular and
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I want. But yet it was sort of like hard because I had to keep, I kept drinking and drinking and I would wake up and I would be the same old Gina, that inside. Like I
Really?
look,
Okay.
yeah, I
Right.
look
It
back
didn't go
now.
away.
It didn't go away. Exactly.
Mhm.
It didn't.
Mhm.
There was like a soul sickness. I look back in hindsight.
Yeah.
Today I
Yeah.
look back. There was a soul sickness. There was an emptiness. There was, there was a child in there that was just covering herself up.
Right.
The way I see it today. And then, and of course, in college, my dad, was very gracious, hardworking, put us all through college, all 8 of us, and we went away. I went
Wow.
away to school, went to
Yeah.
Connecticut.
Mhm.
I wanted to go to a small school to have fun. So that's why I
Okay.
wasn't going to no Ivy League school. I didn't want to
Mhm.
study because it was hard for me. I just wanted to have fun. I wanted to drink and have
Just
fun.
okay. Yeah. Just want right. Hang out and be popular and everybody know you and all of that. Wow. What a way
Yeah.
to shape your life. Let me ask you though, when you were growing up, was there anything that you dreamed of doing that you wanted to do? Any vocation you had in your heart?
I wanted to get married and have 8 kids
That's
and
it.
be like my mother.
That's it. Okay.
Be taking
Uh-huh.
care of the house, taking care of kids, have my husband provide. Of
Right.
course, if I had to provide, I would. But that was my first front is to be married and
To
have a
be
big
married.
family and
Interesting.
have a
That's what
big
I
family.
wanted to do. I wanted to be married with a white picket fence and have kids.
Yes, Yes,
Isn't
my
that
wife.
amazing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and because also my oldest siblings, some of them are 10 years older, and I saw then that's what they did. So when they
Right.
went to college, they found the love of their life, and to this day, they're still married and they have kids and grandkids. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
when I went into college, I was like, okay, I want to find a man, but I wasn't, like I said, I was so insecure of myself. Like I would, sad to say, like I wouldn't have a man. It would be here and there, and it was just like I didn't like myself. I didn't really respect
Right.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that carried on throughout college,
Yeah.
and I did graduate, and I
Yeah.
graduated with a social work degree,
Yeah.
sociology, because to me it was the easiest subject,
Okay.
I thought.
Okay.
And
Okay.
but also, Cassandra, I had a heart of service. I always
Mm-hmm.
had a heart. I always liked to help people on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
I was always like helping, helping, helping.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Social work. Oh, I could help people. I could help
Sure.
people. But
Yeah.
yet, I really wanted to find a man first. But I didn't.
Exactly. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But
Right.
but at the end of my college graduation, yes, I got a degree. And at this time, my parents moved from Long Island to Pennsylvania. They retired, and my mom my mom says, "Oh, Gina, we have an extra room for you. You want to come?" And I'm like, "Okay." I mean, it was the best opportunity then to go.
Sure.
So I
Sure.
did, and I went. I was looking for jobs under social work, for
Sure.
the state, and that's how I landed up bartending. I started bartending, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is
Yeah.
my major. I could talk to people. I could hear
Mm-hmm.
their problems. And I
Mm-hmm.
could share
And
my
solve them, right?
suggestions, solve
Uh-huh.
them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
I could leave, and that's it. Goodbye. Take their money. And I don't
Right.
have to deal with government. I don't have to deal with the laws or anything like that. And
Okay.
so I
Okay.
felt, I mean, and I have a personality plus. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I always
Mm-hmm.
smiled.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but at the same time, I was still searching. I know I was still
Sure.
searching. There
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
that like poor whatever. And then I remember going into try to positive thinking. Now, at this time, I was raised Catholic, but by the time I went into college, I just stopped going to church. It wasn't like I didn't believe, like, not that I didn't believe in God. I didn't need God. Like He's
Okay.
out there.
Okay.
And granted, my parents were very devout Catholics to the day they both died. And so I'm just
Yeah.
like, okay, I don't
Mm-hmm.
need it. So, and my mother being under her roof, she didn't enforce going to church, but she says, oh, it'd be nice. You find a nice man. I'm like, no, I got to bartend. No, I
Yeah.
got to bartend.
Exactly. Wow.
So, yeah, so that was that. So I thought, talking about another dream, you were asking, okay, now granted, I'm not married yet. I don't have 8 kids yet. My
Right.
dream was to work on a love boat. Did you ever remember
Okay.
the love boat, Julie
Yeah, I do
McCoy?
remember that.
Like
Uh-huh.
hospitality. Yeah, that's
Oh
me.
yeah.
Have
Uh-huh.
fun, be the center of
Wow.
attention,
Wow.
and and I said, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. So I had all these applications to Carnival Cruise Lines and things like that. So I'm like, this is my dream. This is what I want to do. I could do it
Wow.
because I'm a people pleaser. I'm a people person too, like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but during
Mm-mm.
that time, my mother, who never gets sick, moms never get sick, but she went in for like a minor back surgery, and she came out, and the doctor said that she had bone cancer, terminally ill, and she had 4 to 6 months to live. And I'm
Oh,
like, what? What
right.
is that? What is that? And it happened in August, and the day that I remember to this day that when we were told this, the next day, my younger brother, Stephen, went off to college. So he
Mm-hmm.
left for his first year of going to college. He just graduated from high school.
Mm-hmm.
My other siblings are married and, have kids and out of, away or
Sure.
wherever. And so it's just my dad and me. So those applications never went out. I was like, okay, I can't do it because my mother, like, I love my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Moms are special, and
Mm-hmm.
so I took care of my mom with my dad,
Sure. Sure.
and we were with my
Wow.
mom 24/7. If I couldn't be
Yep.
there, Dad was there. Even in the hospital, Dad would sleep on the floor. I would come early in the morning, get, coffee like this. We never left my mom. My siblings would come in, maybe once or twice a month to help out, but they sometimes couldn't, not to say couldn't stand, but it was hard for them to see my mother
Sure.
in that
Sure.
position, or, and for me, my mom always looked great, Cassandra. I don't know what it was, but she always looked great, even to the end when she had her little hair up, and
Yeah.
and back then, she did do 3 treatments, but she had bone cancer. So I mean,
Sure.
back then, it's not maybe today. And her cancer it's like a childhood cancer. It only happened, it only appears in children. But needless to say, so now this time when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, okay, let's bring the rosaries out. Let's bring the prayers out. Okay, God, I'm going to go back to church if you heal my mom.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
so that started like my relationship with God. Okay, I'm praying all these prayers. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. But ultimately, my mom died in those 5 months.
I'm so sorry. But
And
Gina, you know what? It's when I listen to your story, and it's like you had trauma. Not only did your mom pass, you had a fiance that
later on,
passed. You had an employer um, that passed. You talked about you had an addiction. It was you talked about you drinking. Um, I
yes.
just want to know how did all of this shape your life? Like what? How did you navigate through these devastating experiences?
Oh, I have to say it was through God's grace without me realizing it. I have to
Hmm.
say that
Hmm.
to be honest, you know what was the best thing that helped me through is breathing and crying. All I did was
Okay.
cry, cry, cry. All I did was like move forward, trying to do what's next step or
Mhm.
whatever it may be. I
Right.
was simply existing, Cassandra, during
Okay.
that time.
Okay.
During really, the sisterhood and everything, it was sort of like God was carrying me along. And then when I thought
Yeah.
I had a breather, like, I got a
Yep.
purpose, then something else happens. Like
Wow.
you said, like something else happens.
Hmm.
Okay, this is it. I'm going to do this. This is great. And it could be fine for a year, 2 years, and all of a sudden, not even something else happens.
That's
But
yeah.
all along, Cassandra, what I realized in hindsight, as we look in hindsight, there was really nothing in me to sustain what was going on in my life.
Hmm.
To keep, I don't know if that makes sense,
Yeah,
but
it does. You were just there. You were
I
just
was just there. I
existing.
was
You were
just,
existing. Yeah,
yes,
and
I
it
was
sounds like
existing.
you right. Yep, that poem about in the sand. It was like you
Yes,
being carried. You saw the footprints, but you didn't see yours. It was somebody that was
yes.
carrying you.
And
Wow.
and I didn't see that somebody until years later, to more,
Right.
when I came into the rooms of AA, that's where I realized like, wow, God was carrying me. And
So so how did you find your purpose, your meaning in life? Like what something had to happen, Gina, for you to overcome and navigate through all of that.
yeah.
What happened to get you
Well,
into that?
what happened is that, I had joined the convent. I was there for 12 years. I got kicked out. I had a lot of pain and suffering in that. And
Oh,
that's where
really?
that's where I shook the dust off my feet and walk. It wasn't a happy ending of leaving. I left.
So excuse me. So you went to the convent after your mom and all this devastation, and you felt that doing that would help.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
After my
Um,
mom died, I came back
mhm.
to the Catholic roots, and then I thought I became a nun, my
Right.
vocation.
Hmm.
I joined a convent. I thought that was my whole life. My whole life. I made final vows. Yeah. So
Hmm.
I was married to the church, married to God, and married to the
Hmm.
community, married to the people, because we worked with the poor.
For
And
12 years now.
for
12
12
years.
years, I did that
Okay.
for 12 years.
Okay.
And then 12 at the end of the end of the last 2 years, there was a lot of hardship, a lot of suffering, and a lot of pain that happened. As a sister, I felt rejected, I felt betrayed, I was isolated, I was sent away. Yes, it was a pain that, and at this point I'm thinking to myself, but God, how could this happen to me? I'm in a religious
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
I was so confused because everybody loved me as a sister. I was a famous, well-known sister back then,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the community, and once again, in hindsight, it was just it was a new community. It was sick. They were going in one direction. My spirit was going in this direction, and it just didn't clash, and
The community of nuns that you were in, right? Like
yeah,
it was a right. So it just as you indicated, it went one way and you were going another way,
yeah,
right?
without, yeah,
And
yeah.
so you knew, it sounded like you knew this wasn't working for you, right? It sounded like that.
Yes,
Okay.
I do have to say, during my time as a nun, like maybe my 6th year in, I would present it to I didn't feel right. I didn't, because I was full of fear, full of pain. Things were just going on. I was just being hurt. And I was like, oh, this is not meant for me. So I would
Mhm.
talk to my director and as
Yeah.
well as another priest, and they kept saying, oh, no, you belong here. You belong here. And I'm like, and I'm thinking that's the word of God. Okay, I guess I'm meant to suffer. That's how
Yeah.
because it continued, and then it came to a point where they said you don't belong here anymore. Like I had gone through so much. It was just a real ugly scene. It was a very
Okay.
ugly scene that I see God allowed it, and I thank God today that I did go through it because I did persevere. I mean, there was a
Right.
point where I was stuck, and there was
Yeah.
a point where I could have easily left. It's like a
Mhm.
marriage, a marriage you could just easily leave. I could have
Mhm.
easily left, but I knew if I left, I don't know where I would be today. I
Right.
wouldn't know where because
Okay.
I went to get the help that they told me to get, and I went for therapy. I went all this and I did everything that they asked me to do, and at the end they said, well, you don't belong here anymore. So, let's
Hmm.
depart our ways. And I was in my 40s and I was like, oh my God, what do I do now? What
Yeah.
do I
What
do
did
now?
you do? What
Yeah.
did you do?
Well, I went to go live with those men with disabilities. I was living with adults with disabilities, Down syndrome, autistic. And that's
Uh,
where it was a transition time because, in the convent, I didn't live a worldly life. We lived a very austere life,
sure.
full
Yeah.
habit, sleeping on the floor, no TV, none of this, none of this. So I was sort of like, what do I do? How do I use a phone? Anything like that. So I
Okay.
lived in it was a transition time where I lived
Mhm.
with men with disabilities as well as
Mhm.
women. And all I did was
Mhm.
they loved me. They just loved me. Like I was so dead at this point, but
Yeah.
they loved me.
Right. And
And
that's
then
what you needed,
yeah,
right?
that's
Looking
exactly what
for
I
it. Mhm.
needed,
Mhm.
and I learned a lot and everything. So, okay, now what am I going to do now? 2 years I did that and I said, you know what? I want to do what Gina wants to do,
Okay.
and what Gina
Okay.
wanted to do. This is another thing. What Gina wanted to do was go to the beach and live by
Mhm.
the beach. So that's where I ended up here at the Jersey Shore. I'm like, yes, I'm at the beach, because,
Okay.
growing up in New York, I grew up with the beach and then Gina did not want to serve anyone. She didn't
Yeah.
want to go into service because I was just so overwhelmed and so like I just didn't want to do it. So I
Okay.
decided to go back to bartending. So I went back to
Okay.
bartending.
Okay. So yeah, so living amongst individuals with disabilities, you got to a point where you realized that wasn't it either for you.
No,
Okay.
no.
All right.
And meanwhile, they thought it was, or they would want it to
Cool.
be. Because wherever I go, Cassandra, they all love me. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, you'd be great for here,
Sure. Sure.
but yet, as much as I love them, but it was like, you know what? It's not for me. It's not for me. So I just
Okay.
wanted to kind of live a normal life. Like up
Right.
until then,
Whatever that is. Uh-huh.
yeah, and I
Right.
didn't. And to
Mhm.
me, my normal life is get like a 9 to 5 job, whatever, like this. But I ended up getting bartending because I didn't have any really job before
Right.
that.
Right.
I was a
Right.
bartender, a sister, and now I'm a bartender. So I'm
Sure.
like, okay, I'll just get my feet wet.
Mhm.
See taste of the world, whatever it may be,
Mhm.
and I'm back in the alcohol scene. Okay, okay, and
Mhm.
then dating.
Were you still drinking then?
Yes and no, not
Okay.
as I was
Okay.
trying not to drink, but I wasn't as much drinking as I was years
Sure.
before that.
Okay.
And
Okay.
but I like to drink, so I was always there.
Sure.
I did drink, but I didn't think I had a problem. But anyhow,
Yeah.
Danny came in and we talked, and a gentleman, and we just talk, and we went out on a date, and I was like, oh, maybe this is it, my first relationship,
Sure.
like maybe, okay, granted, I won't have 8 kids, but maybe I'll get that white picket fence.
Yeah.
And, but it turns out that he was an alcoholic. It came, I didn't realize that. And he was active. So I'm like, okay, and he encouraged me to go to Al-Anon, which is a 12-step program for families. So I did. And, but he was the problem. I wasn't. And, but then I come to find out in Al-Anon that, yes, I was part of a problem too, and I also came into Al-Anon because in Al-Anon, you hear people sharing their experience with families that are in addiction, growing up, whatever. And my eyes opened up and I said, oh my God, that's how I experienced in the convent without them picking up a drink. There's manipulation, there's fear, there's like, let's hide this. Nobody needs to say it, I mean, they weren't drinkers, the sisters. I was. In hindsight, I was the drinker, but I just felt like that dynamic, and understanding.
Okay.
So it's time.
Yeah. So let me ask you. So let's move forward a bit.
Okay.
It was something that got you to where you are today.
Yes.
Okay. What in the world was that?
Well, Danny, he ultimately died from this disease. I found him dead a month before our wedding day. And that was a moment that I was shocked.
Sure.
I was not even existing. I was dead, dead zombie.
Yeah.
And that happened in Indiana. I came back then. I don't really remember those because I was in such pain and such grief. And at this point, I'm angry with God because I'm like, I don't understand this. Like, here I am. And so I got to a point, Cassandra, where after Danny's death and coming back to the Jersey Shore and realizing, because his mom died too, Danny's mom died too in this accident. I mean, it was just trauma, PTSD.
One thing after another.
Exactly. That I'm like, this is my life. You're talking about my life, Cassandra. At that moment, my life was to be miserable. My life was to be in this dark dungeon within my heart and soul, with this in a thick concrete wall with no light and wet, cold. Right. That was it. I came to, but when I came.
Your wits end, it sounds like you at your wits end. And maybe that's a lot to do with the title, Do Not Give Up.
Amen. So anyhow, so when I did come back, once again, I'm just a zombie. I don't know. So much other stuff happened in between. And then I found myself going into the rooms of AA, and that's where alcoholics go in. And it's a 12-step program. But I went in there, Cassandra, to find out why Danny is dead and these guys are sober. I was like, I didn't understand. Because Danny, I was with him when he was sober, great, and he did work a program, but then yet he had such a bad accident that led him to his death, and such as But anyhow, I was like, why? So I was invited to go into these rooms of AA, which I'm not an alcoholic, not me, and so I went in, and there's like a tradition saying the desire not to pick up. So I says, I'll identify because I want to hear. But at the same time, I wanted to kill everyone. If my eyes could kill, they would be dead. Yeah. And I was just I did that for almost a year, going to this club by me, and I was just like moving. I didn't celebrate holidays. I just was existing. Just take me along. During that time, I prayed to God not to. I didn't want to wake up the next morning, but I did. And I just kept going and I kept going. But then it was in the rooms of AA for me when I realized on April 2nd, 2015, that I'm an alcoholic. And that just was like, oh my God, opened up. But at first, Cassandra, it opened up all the pain that I all the pain that I ran from a child, from my insecurities. It was red hot fire. Wow. And it's like, and then now I say I'm an alcoholic and I'm joining this club here, and I'm like, okay, what do I do with it? I used to go to the alcohol to numb it, to get rid of that pain.
Sure.
I would go,
Mm-hmm.
or I would go to my self-pity couch, be miserable
Yeah.
and be like, oh, boo, boo, really like this. So
Yeah.
it's like I had to learn, and which took a while, learn to, live life on life's terms. I had to, one day at a time. So I really went, I brought like God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. He kept
Beautiful.
bringing me into those meetings. I kept listening. And in the meetings, you get a sponsor, somebody else to help you work the steps. There's a step
Yeah.
program. And in that, I was like, okay. And then in that, God came back in my life in a powerful way.
Wow.
Because I hated God, Cassandra, when I
Sure,
went in
you were
there.
angry.
I was so angry, and
Yeah.
I had no problem telling people that,
Sure.
because this
Yeah.
is me. And then, of course, people meant well, and people will come up to me and say, oh, no, God loves you. I was like, no crap, God loves me. I was married
Right.
to him. We're divorced.
Yeah.
I said, he's just on the couch. But it was
Yeah.
such a learning process, which through pain and suffering. But at the same time, there was light because, he came back into my life. I got a new life, a new relationship, one day at a time, and working a program and then bringing scripture back in my life and
Mm-hmm.
just bringing light and life
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
concrete wall that I was stuck in
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
long time.
Sure.
Eventually, it got, some God and, just kept hammering it down.
Right.
And then there were moments it was like, oh my God, there is light.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, Cassandra, I can be happy.
Yeah. That's
Oh
a
my God, I
blessing.
can accept.
Yeah.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
no, at first you want to
Mm-hmm.
sabotage. It's like, no, I don't deserve this. No, I can. I
Wow.
can.
So
And
A was a blessing. I
yes,
mean, yes, just by being in, and also confessing to yourself, I'm an alcoholic. And
yes,
also, I need help. And
yes,
then God's like, I think she's ready now. So let me enter in her and show her who I really am. And what a blessing that you came back into the fold. And then from that point on, you started writing. You started writing with the book, the title of the book that I just loved,
yeah,
Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk. And the
yes,
reason that resonated with me, as I shared in the beginning, before we even got on this podcast, when I was in relationships and they didn't work out, and I was like, okay, how am I going to let go of this? What am I going to do? And I felt the spirit tell me that just shake the dust off your feet and move on. And that thing right there resonated with me so much, and that helped me shake the dust and move on. So, what is your story, and why did you select that title?
Well, when I left the convent, my spiritual director, as I had to give up everything, which was another hard thing, like I had to give up my habit, I had to give up my identity as a sister. I mean, I was there for 12 years. And
Mhm.
so he had said this one day where I handed everything in, he says, prior to that, he says, just meditate on that scripture, shake the dust off your feet and walk, because that's what Jesus had sent his disciples. If they don't like you, shake the dust off, just
Right.
move on. And so, and it just happened an opportunity when I did, take off my habit, put on a prairie skirt, whatever. I was on the floor where the chapel is in the convent where I was saying my goodbyes. Nobody was there. I go into the chapel, I shake the dust, and I said, this is for you, Jesus. And that's where I walked. And
Awesome.
then, as I, like you said, I started writing this when Danny died. It was all pain. And when I
Mhm.
wrote out Danny's pain and my situation with Danny, with that happening, the sister's pain came up. I held so
Mhm.
much, and the things that happened and everything, like,
Mhm.
and then it's like, how can
Mhm.
this be, God? How can this be? I put away 180 pages about 11 years ago
Wow.
aside, and I continue my journey. I held on to those pages, and then maybe last 2 years, a friend of mine is a writer, because I'm not a real writer. I never thought I would write a book. People said
Right.
I should, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I failed English. How could I write?
Yeah.
And so, but a friend of mine helped me put it together. She read it. She goes, now start writing now. Start what
Mhm.
happened in these last 10 years. And once
Mm.
again, and it was, it started with pain, but it ended up in recovery with
Yeah.
peace, joyous and happy and free.
Yeah.
So yes, I did write my story, Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk.
Right.
It's available on Amazon. I just published it this past August, and I'm
Congratulations.
thank you. So I'm a
Awesome.
first time, new time author. This is very new to me,
Yeah.
and
And a
yeah,
bestseller, a #1 bestseller.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
It was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Amazon seller.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
good. It's good. I
Absolutely.
take whatever I can. I'm grateful. I am so grateful for
Wow. You
and
have every
and
right to be. Hmm.
and I'm
And
so go
yeah,
ahead.
it sounded like the book healed you somewhat
Yes.
by letting it all out and letting go.
And Cassandra, that's exactly, I wrote the book was for me. I
Hmm.
wrote the book for me, for continual healing. Yes, I was healed, but there's
Yeah.
continued healing. And then I also wrote for a message of hope and strength for all those who are going through any kind of pain, darkness, stuck, not to give
Yeah.
up, that there is hope. Trust me,
Yeah.
look at my story. If it could happen
Mhm.
to me, it could happen to anyone else. It can. Miracles are in the
Absolutely.
air, so these
Right.
are things. It's just, so right now I'm just trying to promote my book, my encouragement. I'm also an end of life doula too, where
Yeah, I
I,
want to talk about that, but let me ask you this. Okay, so now you're an author, and I see that you're a speaker as well.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
And then you're in the life doula that I want to talk about. But so those are you bartending?
no.
Okay. All right. So what are you doing now, and what do you speak about? What's your title of your message?
Well, it's a message of strength and hope.
Okay. All
I'm,
right.
I'm, I am trying to promote myself and putting myself out there. I spoke a lot when I was a sister, so speaking in front of people,
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me. So
Okay.
now I'm trying to find churches or places that would want an inspirational speaker to say, hey, don't give up. Look at my story. If you're in
Exactly.
darkness, as you know, grief, I was in so much grief. Grief is my best friend. Hey, I know how, this is how I
Mhm.
did through grief. Not to say it's your story,
Sure.
but maybe my story could comfort, or just to exist, keep
Right.
existing, keep
Okay.
existing until there's that brightness. And at the same time, I
Mhm.
am certified as an end of life doula. So when
Right.
people
So
do
that
fall,
your grief helped you get into that parlayed into the end of life doula. I mean doula because of the
no,
grief.
not the end of life doula came when I was a nun, really. And I didn't
Oh,
realize that I
really?
was at end of a life. I never heard of end
Okay.
of life doula until two
Yeah.
years ago,
Hmm.
because the desire of my heart that grew as a nun was to be with people dying. Because
Mm.
if remember, when I was with my mom, when she was dying, I had no faith, no hope, no love, no God. And to me, I experienced hell. That's hell to me on
Yeah.
earth.
Yeah.
Fast forward, become a nun, knowing that there's a heaven, knowing that there is a God, knowing that there's peace. It's like, aha. So when people are
Mhm.
dying, it's like a joy to help them, to say, you're going to a better place, or peace, or whatever it may be, because everyone has their different faiths, different beliefs, but
Mhm.
I know where they're going in my
Mhm.
heart. And
Mhm.
so that seed, like I don't want to say for some reason, but God had always put me at many places when I was a nun where people were dying, or people had died in front of me, people I did not know. And
Yeah.
there was a joke, not a joke, but people said, don't call sister death, don't call
Right.
sister death on me. And so
Right.
then, after the nunnery, after leaving, I did not think, I didn't mind being with the dying. And once again, God would put me in places that friends, mothers, whatever, I happen to be there, whatever, or pray with them,
Mhm.
whatever, at the hospital, volunteer, but I never thought of it until like about maybe 3 years ago. A friend of mine knows that was a passion. Says, "Oh no, don't you know you could be certified as an end of life doula?" I
Mhm.
said, "Wow." I said, "You mean you
Yeah.
could get to do this service and get paid for it?" I said, "I
Yeah.
would have been rich by now."
Yeah.
Because I
Mhm.
have been with so many.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
did get certified. I try to promote myself, put my service out there, in
Okay.
helping, whether it's the patient, and in that helping with grief, because I know, I mean, I've been there. You really can't say anything about grief when somebody's grieving. You got to let them be and hold their hands, love them, or whatever it may be, just to be a comfort to them. And so, yes, death and dying does not scare me. I enjoy it. I don't
Yeah.
tell many people because it'd be like, oh my God,
Right.
but
Well,
I,
yeah.
yeah, it's a
In
seed.
that role, what was the most, as you can think about, the most impactful individual transitioning? Did anything happen that for you was impactful, not only for the person transitioning, but maybe for their family?
Um, I would have to say it was my uncle.
Okay.
It was my uncle. It was a very impactful
Okay.
conversation with him.
As he was
Um,
transitioning.
yeah, yes.
Hmm. Hmm.
The family did not want me to talk to him about it,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
when we were by ourselves, like he would
Hmm.
say to me, "How long has it been with your mom?" You know, because he knew my mom, and I said, "Oh, you're gonna see." And I said, at that time it was about 10 years, and he
Hmm.
said. And then he said to me, he says, "I'm going to see her soon." I said, "Yes, uncle, you're going to see her soon. Please give her a big hug for me."
Yeah. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then also, when I went to visit him the last moment, it happened to be my birthday the next day, and it was the
Hmm.
hospital I was born in.
Oh,
So I
wow.
said to him, I said, Uncle Jim, the best gift you could give me if you want to die on my birthday, so that we share that you be birthed into eternal life. And it was
Oh,
the place that I
wow.
was born.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he took my word and he died the next morning
Isn't that
with his
something?
son, yeah, my cousin's hands. And I
Wow.
happened to get there right afterwards, so I was able to pray with him.
Yeah.
Even granted, his body was still warm, but it was,
Yeah.
to me, that was a gift, and
Sure.
that was the most impact. Helping someone,
Hmm.
transition
Hmm.
from this
Hmm.
life to the next, and
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
so.
You have some kind of story, I tell you.
Yeah.
Um, I want you to I want you to inspire my listeners, which you have, to confront their struggles with grace and resilience, and so that they can emerge on the other side. I mean, you've and many of us have been through so much. And God didn't say life was going to be easy, by no means. So we know that. So my thing is getting through it. Like you said, do not give up, because you were at a point in your life you really wanted to give up. Like, yeah. And now you're like, look, what I've been through, what I've done, don't give up. And then I wanted to say, um, to somebody, and we didn't talk about our ages or anything, but what would you tell? And perhaps this can be part of the confronting the listeners that are struggling. What would you tell somebody that's, I would say, 40 years old, looking back over your life? What would you tell somebody that's in their 40s going to their 50s?
Wow, the fabulous 40s. Well, I would tell all the listeners that are listening now, if you're struggling, yes, our theme is do not give up, but also to remember you're not alone. You are not alone, because there are so many people like you, like me, has gone through it, whether you know it or not. And the best thing that what I did was, honestly, I cried all the time. I shared all the time. I told strangers about what was going on, and just breathing and just pushing forward. And there's no right way and there's no wrong way. That there is a power within us.
Yes.
My power is God. I call God, but some of the listeners may, whatever power is in you, that's not you. That's not,
Right.
it could be whatever you want it
Yeah.
to be, but
Yeah.
it's not you. And just know that there is something in you. There's that
Hmm.
light in you. There's that
Hmm.
hope in you that
Hmm.
wants to sprout out, and it will, if you just know, you just keep, reaching out. If you need to go to different resources to,
Yeah.
talk to someone,
Yeah.
listen to the podcast over and over and over again,
Yeah.
listen to it
Yeah.
over and over again, get up,
Yeah.
read our stories. I know you're,
Right.
something like that, to say, aha, this is going to get me through today. Because all
Yeah.
we have is today.
That's
All
right.
we have is today. So I
Yes.
do. And for those in their 40s, really, there is life. There's life after 40s, and
Mhm.
it's in so many
Mhm.
ways. And people
Mhm.
struggle, whether it's through marriage or a loss, or whatever, or not
Mhm.
knowing what they want to do. Look at
Mhm.
me. I mean, I still never had a profession in my life. I never
Yeah.
got a 9 to 5 job.
Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
did, but here I am standing within myself, that I finally became comfortable with
Mhm.
Gina. I
Mhm.
came comfortable in my own skin, one would
Yeah.
say, and
Yeah.
prior to that, I was never comfortable.
Yeah.
And honestly, if it could happen to me, it can happen to anyone, because I keep stressing this, because there was a time that I did not think I would ever be here today. Did
Mhm.
not. It was in the moment of my mind, grace.
Yeah.
Okay, people are going to suffer. Give it to Gina. I'll do it. I'll
Right.
suffer. I'll take that one on you. I'll take that one on you. And
Yeah.
not to say that suffering goes away once you're in the light. It's just now, you deal with life on life's terms, however your tools are, whatever you are,
Mhm.
whether it's a prayer, whether it's listening to
Mhm.
Cassandra's podcast, whether
Mhm.
it's,
Mhm.
going to
Mhm.
church or going outside and breathing in
Yeah.
the fresh air. There is
Exactly.
something that's greater and better than us, and then we deserve it, and it's
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
you
worth it.
definitely endured. And like you said, if you endured, if I endured, we say anybody can do it. And it's not a
Exactly.
cliche. And I love it
No.
when you said you are not alone, because what you're going through, somebody else is going through it, or either worse, you know?
Yeah.
So, Gina, I just want to thank you so much for your time, your transparency,
Thank you.
just shedding what you have been through. That doesn't mean that's who you are. That's just what you've been through. And I
Yeah.
appreciate you being a blessing to my listeners. And I will also share, like you indicated to your listeners, get the support you need. It is out there. And like you said, you can listen to Do Not Give Up podcast over and over and over again as much as you need it, because as long as you are here, God has something for you to do. And if you're not
Amen.
sure, ask him. And if you open, he will reveal it to you. That I know for a
Yep.
fact.
Absolutely.
So Gina, I just want to thank you again. I'm grateful for the individuals that influenced you on this journey, because I know that we cannot do this thing by ourselves. Um, and I thank you for all the work you're doing and the speaking. And I encourage the listeners to get that book, Shake the
Thank you.
Dust Off Your Feet.
Yes.
Gina, how can my listeners, get in touch with you?
Yes, I do have a website called
Mhm.
ginaecon.com.
Okay.
And my book is available on Amazon. But if you go on my website, there is a link to the Amazon.
Sure.
So
Sure.
that's where I am right now, uh,
Okay. Okay.
promoting my book and things like that.
Mhm.
And also, one thing I want to share with your listeners: if nobody told you that they love you today, we do. Cassandra and
Amen.
Gina love you. I
Yes. Yes.
felt
That's
inspired to
beautiful.
say that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes, indeedy, we love you. And again, my listeners, as I always say, bye for now. And you know that my podcast goes live every Wednesdays at 1 p.m. And if you miss it, it's on all podcast platforms. Gina, thanks again. It was my pleasure. Thanks for being on my show. And
Thank you.
bye for now, my listeners. God bless.
Thank you.